10,000 years of suffering by the hands of DLC heroes that are way more powerful, supports that actually fight back, and tank heroes who make you question your masculinity. It has been a long time, my friend, but at last, you are back. And holy cow, are you busted! Listen, I know I dedicated an entire episode to lowering Genji's win rate in an attempt of convincing Blizzard to buff him, but I feel like they may have overshot the target a bit. Marvel in awe and disgust as I virtually delete this Lucio where he stands. How dare you have less than 200 HP in my presence? Be gone, insolent fool! Man, I still remember when pulling out your Dragon Blade made you the laughing stock of the lobby, as every single crowd control in the video game was being leveraged against you until you are no longer. We have come a far way to see a world in which Genji can unironically dumpster heroes that previously made his life a nightmare without even using his ultimate in the process. I mean, it's one thing to see your second support get decimated and then ponder for just a second before deciding to go the other direction. But it's another thing entirely when just seeing a Nano Genji makes you bust out a Graviton Surge in what is already a 6v1. I mean, for crying out loud, I didn't even have Dragon Blade available. With that said, I can't help but feel like Jeff was looking at the tiny Overwatch version of Genji and thought to himself, yeah, you know what? That should be in the base game. Seriously, what good does knowing that Nano Blade is coming do when that combo can outpace the most powerful defensive ultimates in the game? Forget Graph Dragon. When Genji pulls out a sparkly Dragon Blade, it's like I'm facing the wrath of God himself. It used to be so easy to predict when Deflect is going to end so that you can make him regret engaging you in the first place. But now that they increased its duration, it can fool many a hitscan player into popping their own noggin. Naturally, it seems like Chinese knockoff Naruto over here is completely broken now, but to determine whether or not Genji is actually overpowered, he has to pass one final test. A test that we are going to conduct once we have covered what happened on our last episode. Empowered by the spark of inspiration, we have gone on a journey of establishing our position at the top of the food chain. That journey would take us to the best map in the game to prove our value and test everything we have learned in the art of psychological warfare. Solos have been altered and T's have been backed, but at last, the outcome was an unexpected one. But now we are facing the dawn of a new day and we are playing on a brand new patch, one that aims to bring Genji back into the meta by filling kill feeds with the unstoppable force of the Nano Blade. However, Nano Blade always has been a very strong combination of ultimate abilities and can't be used as the only measurement for his current place in the power charts. Really, the defining factor is whether or not somebody willfully incompetent can make use of Genji and decimate the opposition despite not knowing what the heck they're doing. Obviously, Genji is now a very strong choice for top 500 players who are mechanically skilled, but what about your average pleb? Could I also make Genji look absolutely busted despite him being one of my worst picks? Well, there's only one way to find out. Our story today takes place on Watchpoint Gibraltar. If there was ever a map to test your limits as a Genji novice, it would most assuredly be this one. Between the incredibly poor lighting and the overabundance of high ground, you will find yourself using your mobility to contest all the thirsty hitscan players looking to camp up top. You have to think in more than just one dimension, which for somebody playing low mobility characters is a very drastic shift in playstyle. But I'm not one to back down from a challenge, gladly embracing the rapid increase in difficulty that I was bound to experience on this map. Anyway, it's time to get the show on the road as the attackers leap out of spawn to begin escorting the objective. And just like I expected, their lineup included a Widowmaker. Of course, it will be my job throughout the game to keep her at bay, but first things first, we had to engage in the obligatory poking war. To my surprise, that poking phase did not last very long, and while first blood would be drawn by the opposition, our Widowmaker answered in kind to keep us in the game. With no presence on the objective, the cart would continue moving forward until our team decided to initiate the first actual team fight down in the underbelly of Watchpoint Gibraltar. Our main tank was painfully aware of the fact that should we lose the first fight, the snowball-heavy nature of this map would make it very difficult to recover. As such, Old School, the Reinhardt player, confidently marched on forward in an attempt of creating the space necessary for us to engage. While Tuskies booked another W in the 1v1 department, I would use the space created by Old School to dash into the enemies and pressure the opposing Ana into an early grave. Wildcat tried to save her second support but stood no chance against the new and improved damage output that Genji could deliver. Feeling almost sorry for their Mercy having wasted her wings while still unable to out-heal my damage, I figured that letting her return to spawn would not be a big deal. Except that the Widowmaker disagreed. Oh, so that's the game you want to be playing then? Hey, if it's a fight you're looking for, it shall be a fight you get. Once I've respawned and returned to the front line, it is time to pull out the blade. As I made my way out of spawn, all I could think about was the anticipation of my revenge plot. Sure, I haven't really played Genji since the last time I made a video about it, and even in general, my Genji playtime isn't exactly impressive. But hey, the enemies don't have to know that, right? If Genji really is as powerful as everyone says, then surely I must be able to pull off a team wipe in sheer disregard of my incompetence. But when I arrived on the high ground to scout the enemy team's positioning in preparation for my ultimate, I found that Tuskies had already taken out the opposing Widowmaker. But not all hope was lost, since Wildcat decided that their sniper extraordinaire was worth resurrecting, making for a prime target to be assassinated. When I dashed into their mercy ready to take her head, suddenly panic ensued. My lack of experience as a Genji player was breaking through the facade of my fake confidence, and I found myself amidst the enemy team with no idea how to react. Any seasoned Genji player would have easily confirmed that kill, but here I fought wondering, how was that not a kill? Thanks to the grace of my supports, I somehow managed to get away with my life, but that didn't stop us from collectively getting pushed back towards our spawn. Monster Steak, the Hammond player, cut off the choke point by using his ultimate, believing he could confirm a kill on our Reinhardt. But Old School immediately countered with the absolutely massive brain play that is turning the shield into the mines to avoid lethal damage. With the minefield out of the way, we could re-engage the opposition, and naturally, I was looking for the enemy Widow. While my Zarya pressured her up front, I decided to take a backline approach to cut off her possible escape onto the high ground, but rather than opting for retreat, she decided to accept her fate and embrace the loving arms of the respawn timer. Of course, the red team had no intention of fully engaging before they had replenished their numbers, meaning that more poking was in order. As much as I also didn't intend to fully commit to a fight, when I saw that Tuskies left the enemy Genji in dash kill territory, I had no choice but to go in. That assassination, however, was only the beginning, as I returned to my Ana's line of sight for a nano boost, pulling out my blade and getting right back to work. I had successfully confirmed 2 more eliminations, excited to cover the kill feed in more blue, but then made a fatal mistake. I had misjudged my distance to the enemy Mercy, missing the slash and dashing into her, thinking it would take her out. Unable to reset my dash, I ended up climbing the wall to re-engage, but the Widowmaker had already escaped, and you know that once Nuclear got back into the fight, he'd be looking to regain his honor. As much as it looked like everything was going downhill from here on out, Old School would come in clutch once again to keep us in the game and buy us enough time to return. But we were far away from being safe, especially with the enemy Widow getting in position to end this fight once and for all. But thanks to my Reinhardt's excellent stalling, I managed to come back just in time and rid them of the plague that is a flanking Widowmaker. Seconds that felt like minutes passed with my team setting up in their respective positions while awaiting what would be the attacker's last attempt. This defense had already shown me that I had a long way to go if I wanted to strike fear into the enemy's house when playing Genji. But it seemed like I would get away with my mistakes for good, as the enemy Winston completely messed up his jump, feeding himself into the grinder that is my Shuriken fan. Where losing your main tank would spell doom for many teams, Nuclear decided that if they wanted to advance to the second point of the map, it would only be through the power of his Dragon Blade. As such, he pulled out the weep stick to slice and dice the snipers up on high and bring them back down to earth. It took some amount of effort for sure, but eventually the damage our lineup sustained opened up a massive window of opportunity for the enemies to finally cap the first point. For any of you who spend any extended period of time on this map, you will know that the second point can be extremely snowbally. If the attacking team is smart, they are going to push into the defender spawn to stop them from properly regrouping, and ensuring that a staggered spawn would give them the necessary advantage to take the card all the way. And guess what happened? Yep, that exact thing. Now listen, there are few things as important in Overwatch as a hefty dose of self-awareness. Confidence is great and all, but at some point you just have to realize when what you are doing isn't working. It was obvious to me that I couldn't out-Genji Nuclear, who had proven to be an order of magnitude more competent than me, and the enemy Widowmaker got tired of kissing the floor, so they made the switch to Ashe, enjoying the belt attachment that is Mercy. But you should know me by now. If there's one thing I'm not, it's a quitter. I was determined to find a way to make Genji work in my hands, and a Dragon Blade at the ready gave me the confidence to double down on my plans. Even if I'm not good enough to wipe the entire team, if I can just take out the right target, maybe I would be able to stabilize us. But as it stands, the enemy team continued to push into our spawn, exacerbating on the problems we had already been dealing with. If we don't do something quick, then there won't be another chance to prove myself. Fine then, it's time to revitalize our spirits. Seizing the opportunity given to us by virtue of the Roadhog using his hook, I dashed into the attackers to pull out my blade and chase down the flying nuisance that is Mercy. While I eventually caught my target, the fact that I wasted my dash into the pillar meant that no more eliminations could follow. But the damage had already been done, and that was all it took for my team to light defiance within their hearts and push the attackers back to whence they came from. And while they did so, it was time to compensate for my lack of experience and mechanical skill by utilizing my gargantuan brain. That's right, my friends. In order to continue playing Genji, I swapped off of Genji. I know it sounds crazy, but I had already proven that I can deal with the opposing hit scan better if they are on Widowmaker. All it takes are a few good shots to bait them into a sniper sniper duel before I switched back to Genji and continued to dominate them. I admit that trying to play an average Widowmaker in the presence of a decent Genji ready to Nano Blade me to Narnia and back is a bold move, but that isn't a problem that a Graviton Surge can fix. Thankfully, I had just enough aiming capability to take out a stationary target. And just like clockwork, the enemy hit scan engaged in a long-range duel with me. My entire plan hinged on the outcome of this 1v1, and you can be certain that when push comes to shove, I'm going to hit my target. After they lost the next team fight, Ash was ready to meet me on even ground, but little did they know that I had planned this all along, walking back to spawn the moment I saw a swap and getting back on Genji. It is time to reap the rewards of my big brain play and plant my flag on the ground whilst denying Team 2 the satisfaction of completing the final objective. Victory. Maybe I should have stayed on Widowmaker. The end. Hey, thanks for watching today's episode. What can I say except for Genji difference? Turns out that even when he's busted, I still can't win a game. Either way, if you enjoyed this video, then do let me know by dropping me a like on your way out, consider subscribing if you want to see more, and definitely hit that bell icon to not miss out on the next episode. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and until next time, peace.